big difference between this receiving core and last year's receiving core, do you think?
Yeah, I don't, the biggest thing with us is we've tried not to do a compare and contrast thing. Like the mentality of the team, is we've all been talking about like what's next. And so although you learn from the past, we're not really sitting there and doing a compare and contrast of a last year's group versus a this year's group. The guys are just focused on task at hand and coming in and working their tails off day in and day out. So just really focus on just getting this year's group, the cohesiveness, the physicality we want to play with, and setting the culture of the unit within the confines of the team, just setting that within the unit. So really don't speak much about like, hey, this year's group versus last year's group.
Joey talked a little bit about Micah's kind of transition, having not gone through spring. First couple of days were a little bit tough for him.
Yeah.
What have you kind of seen from him from that first practice to today's session?
Growth. Micah has a very strong willingness to learn. I mean, he's constantly coming up, meeting. He has Barron will get after him if he needs to. I'll get after him if I need to, and he accepts it, man. He has a willingness to learn, a hunger to learn. And on the same, on the same hand right there, we also recognize that, hey, he's in practice 6, 7, of being a college football player. He didn't go through some of the stuff, so he didn't have the spring to mess up like some of the other guys had. And so, some of his hiccups or some of his pitfalls are happening right now, and we understand that. And so the biggest thing is to know those are going to happen, know those are coming, and to coach him through those things. And I think he's just continued to improve every practice with that.
Coach, there's been a lot of talk about Micah, and understandably why, but what about Chandler Myers? He's been impressive from what we've seen in fall camp.
Yeah, man. Chandler's come in and worked his tail off. I mean, really, the room is pretty deep. All right, the room is deep, and I think that anybody that you put out there has an opportunity to go out there and make a play. And so, really happy about the depth of the room. From Chandler all the way down and across, I feel comfortable whoever's out there is going to make a play.
Coach, have you felt that Josh Kelly has kind of taken a leadership role in this room? It seems like that he's mentoring Micah a little bit from what everybody's talked about.
Yeah, I think Josh Kelly sees some younger self in Micah right now, and so he probably already recognizes like those pitfalls that are coming, or hey, coach is finna be on you right here. Just understand, like, X, Y, Z. So he coaches them through some of those things. Josh is a very mature kid, right? Has played a lot of football, and so having done that, I put Josh in some of those roles to kind of, be a leader to those guys and kind of mentor those guys. And Josh does a great job at that, as well as some of our other older guys of like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going to happen. I've been through this. This is how you can prepare for it. And this is how it's going to be. And so, all those older guys, Josh included, man, have done a great job of kind of taking those younger guys under the wing and saying, hey, we've been here before. We've been here before. I know what you're feeling. It's okay. We're going to get through it.
Coach Kidley talked recently about changing the way y'all practice the screen game, the way you scheme it, all that. What's on the receivers in terms of improving the screen game this season?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing with it is we have a lot of playmakers on the team, and so we understand that. And so getting the screen game going is really important, right? Getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand, protecting B, and then getting it to our playmakers and letting them go be special, right? Letting them use the gifts that they were given. And so with that is just blocking on the perimeter to get the screens going, setting the screens up the right way, and then just hitting it. I talk to them all the time, old school Crabtree, you used to watch Crab, he'd take a screen, he catch it on the right hash, he might finish on the left. And so we've done a lot of, I've tasked these guys with understanding a lot of the background history too of the receiver play that's been here, from that time, from Crab to Wes and those guys, so on and so forth. A lot of those guys, and talking about those guys, and so I think they understand they're hungry for that.
You've talked about the depth that this room has. Where have you seen the biggest incremental growth in your room?
I would just say like kind of like the depth of like I guess what you would perceive like the top to middle tier is, right? And so I think we got a few guys that it really doesn't matter. Like, hey, You know, we can flip a coin, who's gonna start here? We can flip a coin, who's gonna start here? Flip a coin, who's gonna start here? Whoever's playing the best that day, that week. We got a lot of guys that have now kind of played some football. We got sprinkled in a few older guys. We still got some guys that are really talented but haven't played a lot of football that, you know, that we're gonna put them in some situations too. But I think overall depth of how many guys we can say, hey, go play football. I think that's the biggest growth we've had.
And as you coach this room, you can see when the game slows down for these
Right.
players. Who are some of the other young players that you can see that switch being clicked of, I got it now?
Yeah, if we're staying with young players, I would say Kelby and TJ. You know, Kelby and TJ have done a really good job. You know, you can tell, all right, they get it. They've been in the program now. They've been in the room now. They understand the expectation now. So Kelby and TJ, as far as from a young guy perspective, you know, now we got some older guys that you see it clicking with too. But from a young guy perspective, I would say Kelby and TJ, you see that from that switch kind of going, and their function, and you can throw them in with any group and they function at a high level. And then a really young guy that's doing the same thing, who's grasping, not taking a, you know, step back from anything and doing really well. Tyson Turner too, high level learner. I think he's 100% right now on his go balls. So tracks the ball really well. So he's another guy that, you know, came early, so had an opportunity, and that's kind of, you can see it, you know, kind of constantly growing in him too.
Coach, back on Josh Kelly for a moment. I know that you guys are playing him both inside and outside. I guess. Could you dive into a little bit of the nuance about what makes him better inside or outside, or where he can excel?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a spot like that makes him better. I would say this about Josh: he has a high level football IQ and a high level spatial awareness. So he's very aware where like his spots are. Like if you're playing zone, he's gonna find the hole in the defense. And the beautiful thing is with him, if you're playing man to man, he's savvy enough and really crafty enough to move a defender off a spot to get to his blade of grass that he's trying to get to. And so he has just, you know, he has everything in his bag. And so he can line up outside and take you one-on-one because he has that. And then he can line up inside and uncover versus zone defense. And so, you know, when you got a guy that's like that can do that, you can have the opportunity to move him in and out. And so he'll play in and out, and we'll let whoever we're playing figure out, you know, when that is when we see him.
Coach, we
Got time for about two more.
Coach, you talked about a lot of different guys today, but is there somebody that we're not talking about enough, that maybe like the unsung hero of your room, that is doing the little things that nobody's talking about, that's coaching guys up, that's taking somebody under their wing, that is doing the right things on the practice field that, I mean, we can't see all the practice yet, but needs to have some more attention put on?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know. Like, these guys are all humble, man. I don't necessarily know if it's like an attention thing. Like, I think everybody kind of gets it, like the nature of the beast, of like what it is. And our room is really, really close. And so we've had those conversations. And obviously I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, a lot of guys. But, I mean, you go down the list and you got a guy, you know, an older guy like a Brady Boyd, who's a high football IQ guy who can coach up, you know, some of those young guys when you put him out there on the field, or you can task him, say, hey, go grab him, let him know this was wrong on that. You got a guy like Coy who does everything right, everything that you ask him to do, he's on point with it. Plays his tail off, blocks his tail off. So you got a guy like him that's, you know, doing any and everything and having a great camp. Then you got a guy like Jordan Brown, also going in, can play multiple spots. And so I would say, you know, those guys right there, you know, the guys that were here and have played some ball, that have been with me now for a year or two, you see them going, you know, it kind of like the switch we talked about, you know, they're not necessarily younger guys, but they're probably, you know, particularly younger guys as far as like playing time and a lot of football being played compared to a Josh Kelly. But I say those guys as well are doing a phenomenal job for me, you know, on the field and culturally off the field as well.
You kind of mentioned that there's a few guys where it's just kind of flip of a coin who kind of go where. So what's kind of the competition level of guys jockeying for those positions to get more playing time than their counterpart? Yeah,
I talked to them about like, you know, like, I mean, you can't get it mistaken. Like that's just how our program is. It's high level competition. right? And so we're gonna compete, but at the end of the day, all those guys know, within the room, they're brothers, okay? And in the unit, we're all brothers, and so there's not like a jockeying for this or jockeying for that. I think it's more of a, hey, I know when I go in there and I get my opportunity, it's time to take advantage of my opportunity, and I have to play really, really hard. Or then there's another guy that's going in there that's going to play really, really hard and take advantage of that opportunity. So I think it's more just of a kind of a seize the moment when you're in the moment type deal for these guys mentality. And I talk to them about just having this mentality. Don't worry about anything else. Just have hey, this meeting is important. This rep, this game, this right now. What's important right now? And so I don't think there's necessarily a jockey deal. There is a sense of urgency, hey, I gotta take advantage of my opportunity and do what I'm supposed to do, or this next guy coming in, he might do that at a high level.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.